Jessica Penzias. Is that
That's
proper?
Yeah.
Great. You were with David Stern and Stuart Gibbs.
Yes, I was. I'm also a senior and an English major and a theater arts minor. And I was working with David and Stuart, who are both writers out in LA. They both have experience in television and film, and David also works in theater, and Stuart also has taken on a new venture to write children's books, really young adult novels. So with Stuart, I worked mostly on his young adult novels. I was doing a lot of research for him. He was writing about France and a spy school, and so he had me researching weapons and history, and so I'm in the library with all these very bizarre books. I also got to edit a lot of his drafts, which was really amazing because as the next draft would come to me, I would see my changes in it, and one of his books actually just came out, and it's just amazing that I helped impact that. With David, I worked very closely with him on some movies he's developing. I got to sit in on a lot of meetings and take notes, and they allowed me to help them brainstorm and offer suggestions, which was really incredible. And then I would type up the notes and send them to him. I would also edit a lot of his scripts. What was really interesting about this internship was that it was definitely not a 9-to-5 job. It was highly, highly unstructured. So there were days when I would be with them all day and then maybe not hear from them for an entire week, which was really interesting and a little bit jarring at first. But then I realized that I was in LA for a summer and I was getting paid. And I could use this opportunity to explore LA, but most importantly to network and to learn more about the industry. And David and Stuart were really helpful in setting me up with some people they had worked with in the past. And I also reached out to a lot of Penn alumni who I met with, and then friends of friends and friends of friends of friends. And basically after each meeting, I would try and get 2 new names from that one person and meet with a huge list of people who I now continue to talk to about the industry, and they kind of have feelers out for if there's any writer's assistant jobs or anything like that, and they just told me about their experiences in the industry. So I'd say that 50% of the value of the internship came from working with David and Stuart, and they were so helpful and wonderful. And then the other 50% was really just meeting with all these people and taking advantage of the resources in LA. And then at the end of the internship, I traveled with David to Chicago to work on a play with him there. So he was developing a musical with Stephen Schwartz, who's the composer-lyricist of Wicked, Godspell, Pippin. So I got to sit in on rehearsals, which was wonderful, help the director. And then he actually invited me and my parents back to the opening at the end of September, which was so wonderful and an invaluable experience.
I think, there was a lot of interesting information there, but that idea of like all of the things surrounding the internship and the place where you go, I think it's important. The internship has its own value, obviously, but there's other possibilities, and it really sounds like you took advantage of them. That's excellent. Jessica Sutro, who is at Granary Books.
Hi, I'm Jessica. I'm also a senior. My internship, I think, is very different, kind of going off of Jessica, differently structured than I was expecting. I worked at Granary Books, and they kind of specialize in artist books, so I kind of describe that as an intersection between art and books, and that's kind of where they end up. But although it's described as a publishing internship, I did mostly nothing on the publishing side because the owner of Granary Books, Steve Clay, he's kind of expanding into this new area, which is archiving. So basically what that means is he's very well networked with all of the artists in New York, basically from the 80s onward. And they get to this point in their life where they need a bit of extra money because they're still artists. And they have these huge archives of letters, memorabilia, artwork, and often all of their friends have also become really famous. And so therefore all of these letters now are really valuable and provide kind of a history of what went on in that time period. So the first couple weeks I started straight in with an archive of a poet called Janet Hamill, and she was best friends with Patti Smith and worked on writing Patti Smith's memoir with her. Called Just Kids. Some of you might have read it. And so I was basically responsible. Steve walked in. He had like 2 huge boxes of basically letters. It was just like, here, sort them. And so I just like opened letter after letter after letter, and you're reading like really intimate details of these people's lives and sorting them into like who they're from and everything. And I didn't know anything about this period. I'm a medieval person. I study medieval literature, and I had like, I knew who Patti Smith was, but that was about the extent of my knowledge. So the whole summer was just kind of a learning process in figuring out these people, but I got to learn it in a really cool way. I got to read their personal lives and learn about them that way. And so that was the majority of the work I did. There was a lot of grunt work. Steve was also redoing the entire Granary archive, which is all the correspondence that Granary had to eventually, I guess, sell that. So I did a lot of filing for that. But I guess the main part of my internship that I really valued was just interacting with Steve on a daily basis, because I always describe to my friends like him, he's basically a one-man show. He runs his entire business, and he's constantly thinking of ways to expand it. So, 20 years he was maybe focusing more on publishing, and now he's getting into archiving. And he's one of these people who he was really passionate about something, and he made it work. He's constantly changing his business to suit the demands of people he knows. So right now he knows a lot of people at rare books libraries who want these archives of these poets. So now he's focusing on this. So I think I learned the most from him, how you can simply take something that you're really interested and just go for it and just start your own business. I had never really worked anywhere with someone who self-run their own business. And I worked in his apartment with his family. His office was in the front part, and I had lunch with his family every day. So I met his kids and his wife, and it was a very personal work environment. But it was pretty solitary. A lot of you guys are describing kind of talking to lots of different people. It was basically just me and Steve and one other guy called Tom every day sorting through letters. So so it wasn't you weren't meeting a ton of people, but I did learn a lot, and I pulled on a lot of. Sophomore year I worked in archiving at Rare Books at Penn, which is one of the reasons I think Steve was interested in me, is because I'd already had experience in that. So any of you who are English majors who are interested in research, if you like researching, that was basically a lot of what I was doing. So less writing, but more research, I guess, I would describe it.